Thank you for staying with us here on Politics Today. We've been discussing several issues, from the presidential media chat to the centenary celebration, and gradually we'll be taking that issue into the national conference. We're looking at the implication of the speech of President Jonathan on the centenary celebration. And just let me take some of your comments that you sent in to us, particularly the ones you sent directly to my Twitter handle. Haruna Daniels says that if the government had postponed the celebrations, would anyone have been upset, even if the foreign dignitaries would have understood with us? Those are some of your comments, but keep them coming as we discussed, and I have the two gentlemen in the studio who are doing justice to some of the issues that we are discussing, Colonel Anthony Inyam and Barrister Wahab Shitu. Thank you for staying with us on the program. The implication, I actually cut you before we went on break, Barrister Shitu. The implication of what President Jonathan actually said, there was some form of recognition of the insurgency, and he talked about the resolution of the government to fight the insurgency to their knees. This brings me to this question that people are saying, if we are celebrating the centenary, then it calls for us to, the implication is that we enjoy our coming together, and people are asking that at the national conference, the first question we must ask ourselves is, should we be together? And that should be the basis. Do you believe so?
Yes, I believe so, as some of the fundamental, reasons for the conference. I do not agree with the government position that we should not discuss that the unity of this country is not negotiable. I think it is convenient for the government to hold that position. But whether that position in reality will benefit this country in the long run is for the Nigerian people to decide. I don't think we should build our unity on fear. If we come together, if we discuss, there are two basic questions that we must answer.
Which are?
One, do we want to stay together? That question cannot be resolved except through a referendum or a plebiscite of the Nigerian people. I, for one, I want Nigerians to stay together. But that's my own opinion. What is the opinion of the cross-section of the people? That can always be determined through a referendum. Now, when we determine we want to stay together, the next question arises, under what terms? Those basic questions we must determine. And when we discuss it, the outcome of the conference will resolve whether we want to stay together or we do not want to stay together. That's one. Two, this conference is also important for discussing the future of our country. The future of our country is beyond Wahab Shitu. It's beyond President Jonathan. We are talking of the issue of generations yet unborn. The future of our country has to be discussed in that conference. Three, we need to use the avenue of the conference to discuss the appropriate political structure for the country. There are some who say the presidential system of government is too expensive. We need to discuss it. We also need to discuss the appropriate constitutional structure that is suitable for Nigeria. We all know that this constitution that we operate tells a lie by itself. It does not reflect the wishes and aspirations of the Nigerian people.
But again, this constitution...
But I'll be happy.
Just a moment. This constitution is being amended.
Yes.
And the president has said, look, at the end of the day, the Secretary to the Government of the Federation says the recommendations of the National Conference will be passed, will be taken to the National Assembly, which is actually...
That's another flaw. Because we can even discuss the structure of the National Assembly itself. We might decide at the end of the day that we don't want the National Assembly as presently constituted. A bicameral legislature, we might say, oh, that is not what is best suited for Nigeria. So I'm saying that if we are talking of a conference whose results will not come back to the people in a referendum, it's a bloody waste of time.
Interesting. Let me allow Colonel Inyam to weigh in. You were part of the Presidential Advisory Committee on the National Conference before you pulled out. Tell us some of the things that were on your minds when you went around. And at the end of the day, to the point that we are, a lot of things have changed, actually. from this point, the yearnings of Nigerians. Do you agree with what Barrister Shitu said?
I think the yearning of Nigerians at the beginning, it's always been for a conference, on the part of a conference, that the outcome of the conference will give us a people's constitution. The issue of amendment, you cannot change a goat as someone, change a goat to become a sheep. The constitution we have now is an imposed constitution, and it's a constitution that was decreed by military decree. So it has no legacy of democracy in it. And even in it, there are deliberate provisions that are deliberately kept there to shortchange the majority of Nigerians. So what we need a constitution that obeys the principles of federalism and democracy, of fairness, equity, justice.
And how can that come in place?
Now,
considering the representation, even the representation and the modalities at the national conference.
No. The issue is the fact that the conference was taken, in other words, if you use any existing substructure, you are right, we will come up with unequal representation. But I think what I'm happy to say all this is that when you look at the representations coming out from some zones of the country, especially the Southwest, I'm so impressed because eminent, respectable people are coming on board, the likes of Olani Ajayi, the likes of General Kirinade, the likes of Akion Yobodi. I'll be very surprised if anybody in any house will try to push aside an outcome of people of such representations.
Yeah, Colonel, it's interesting. We have, no doubt, some of the best legal practitioners, some of the best political scientists around the world.
Yes.
It's interesting that we have them. I mean, one of those, the two of some of Nigerians' best political scientists spoke at the Southern Conference, on the National Conference. And I really find their thoughts on the issue of the National Conference very interesting. I'd like to share their thoughts with you so that we can comment on them. Professor Olufemi Mimiko and Professor Gigi Dara. Let's take a look at what they said at that conference, and let's see where we can take it from that point.
This conference we are going to tackle those laws and abrogate them from our constitution. If you don't change the laws, you cannot have good governance. The governors will tell you what they go through, having to go to Abuja every week. This caricature federation is what we are going to cure in Abuja.
So the way out for me is federalism. Has been pointed out variously by everybody that has spoken here. What we have that is called federalism in Nigeria is, to all intents and purposes, a unitary system of government.
Interesting, very, very interesting there, Professor Olufemi Miko and Professor Gigi Dara. Those are very interesting thoughts there. Lot of things they said, those are just, because of our time, those are little ones that we can actually bring to you. But interesting again is that across the world, some of a similar nation that we have some sense of semblance, India and some other countries of the world, they do not operate federal system of government. It's interesting that some of them operate the parliamentary system of government. Professor Mimiko said, federal system of government. Let me come to you. You are the learned person here.
Well, I think
tell us
one thing we must appreciate.
From their position.
One thing we must appreciate is that our federalism is in the reverse gear. We are practicing a unitary system of government masquerading as federalism. If you want to have a truly federal system, you must have true federalism, true fiscal federalism. There must be devolution of powers to the federating units, and there must be autonomy of the federating units, so that the center does not get too powerful. Part of the problems of our country is because of this, federalism being in the reverse gear. So a conference of this nature must be able to discuss the structure, must be able to discuss derivation, must be able to discuss citizenship, and must be able to discuss nation building. And more particularly, a lot of people feel concerned about the way our country is being run in terms of non-compliance with the elements of federalism.
Do you agree that the law that we have now should be scrapped? That's one of the suggestions.
No, what we have now is that the situation we have now is a federal government without a federation. And that is an anomaly. You understand me? That has to be corrected.
That seems to be a bit technical.
Yes.
You explain.
A federal government without a federation.
No, a federalism without fiscal federalism.
Okay.
You see, the issue, as Professor Dara mentioned there, this is the only country in the world where people go every month, go and share the cake, and not bothered about how the cake is baked. Usually in a federalism, as it was the case, it's not even, because at times when we talk of as if it is new, prior to the 63s, the likes of Obafemi Awolowo, Ahmadu Bello built the pyramids and of products, and Ahmadu Bello Awolowo built the first television before even Germany. All this came from the issue whereby you work, you create wealth, pay your due contributions to the center. The emphasis was much more on revenue generation and not
on sharing.
Not on sharing. So once you are sharing, it's no more federalism. So we have to correct that, and that is the real one of the mother of all corruptions. Because when you take things from people and centralize them, the things becomes no man's property, and of course those who are supposed to be custodian of it are tempted to be corrupt. But once you allow people to work and hold their resources and pay their due taxes, then it's much more harder for corruption. So the system we have now, as Chivanyaku just said, it's abets corruption. It abets corruption. The whole point about why we need to discuss now is really to improve the livelihood of our youths. The system we have now is not sustainable. We want a system whereby which will have incentives for people to create wealth and employ our youths. We cannot carry on this way, whereby everybody wants to be a politician. Everybody wants to go and share or steal the money stolen by government.
All right. Because of our time,
Sure.
I mean, unfortunately, we have some very interesting issues to talk about. Sure. But I would like you to share, 1 minute each, and let us just set an agenda for some. The deadline for the submission of the delegates list has come and it's ended. Let us spend a minute each and talk about what are the basic things that we should be looking at and what will make the national conference count. Let me start with you, Barrister Shitu.
I think we should have a conference that is open. There should be no go areas, because we are talking of the future survival of our country. We should have a question that will discuss the future of our country. We should have a conference that will discuss the appropriate political structure of our country, the appropriate constitutional structure of our country, that will answer the basic national question, that will also investigate the root causes of the grievances.
All right. Let me allow Colonel Hian because of our time.
Sure. I think what we need,
just briefly,
what we need is to really correct the deliberate undermining of what federalism is in Nigeria by giving back the people their freedom. The whole question is that everybody's going to the conference to seek for fairness. That's what we're all seeking for, fairness.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us. Just before we go, 1 minute, and your thoughts that you're sending to us. Timothy Ayodele said the confab is needed for us to define our own character as a nation. Irene says we all can't be at the national conference, but it is possible for the government to use the social media to get wider inputs from the populace. Well, those are some of your thoughts on the program today. It's been an interesting time with Colonel Anthony Iyam and Barrister Wahab Shitu. Lot of thoughts, lot of stuff that we need to talk about. Well, time is not on our side. For the team here at Channels TV, it's been another interesting edition of the program. My name is Sheung Okimbale. Until next time, have a wonderful evening.